Once again, we want to welcome you to the program tonight. Ms. Duane, thank you so much for being back here with us. We truly appreciate your presence. So welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. Pleasure is mine to be here again.
All right. I know we have a lot to cover tonight in the one session, in the 40 minutes or 35 minutes. So I'm going to go right ahead and ask you the first questions because we have been getting these questions. We had some carried over from last week. And so my first question to you, if someone has property in Jamaica, because this property thing has been coming up so many times, it's the meat of everything that is going on, Ms. Duane, and so you will be getting a lot of these property questions tonight. So if someone has property in Jamaica and say, for example, the person dies overseas, does the family have to probate the will in that jurisdiction? How does that work if there's property in Jamaica and the person dies overseas?
Okay, if a Jamaican or anyone who has property in Jamaica dies, it's not necessary that the probate be acquired in whatever jurisdiction. If, say for instance, the will or the estate may be probated in the United States or Canada or wherever. If the will has in or contains property located in Jamaica, what needs to happen after the probate is that an application for resealing is done at the Supreme Court. Resealing basically validates or clarifies, authenticates that the necessary steps or the preliminary steps were taken in settling the estate. If the person does not choose or the family does not choose to apply for probate elsewhere or in that jurisdiction where the deceased might have passed, they can probate the will in Jamaica. But if it is done overseas, when it comes to Jamaica to deal with the Jamaican property, we have to apply for a process called resealing. So it's basically saying, yes, the probate was granted. Yes, I'm putting my stamp of authority on the will.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I know that is a question that has been troubling for many persons, considering that they have relatives who live overseas. So thank you so much for answering that, Ms. Duane. I move on to the next question, and I see this property thing coming up so often, Ms. Duane. It look like you're gonna have to specialize more in property than anything else, because this is a question.
Speak it into being.
This is a question that keeps coming up. Now, I know last week you talked about the joint tenancy and the tenancy in common. So for the benefit of those who were not here last week or who asked the question over a second time, could you please explain the real difference between them and give us like an example of how this works?
Okay. Holding property or ownership of property can be done in two ways: formal ownership via joint tenancy, meaning that more than one persons may own a property and they have equal shares. If one, say for instance, family of 5 owns a property as joint tenants. If one person dies, there are 4 left. Let me start over. Owning property is like a piece of pie. I'm trying to find the simplest terms because sometimes we get into our legal jargon and it confuses persons and they don't really understand. So they leave just as confused as when they came. Owning property is like a pizza. So each person owns a slice of that property. 5 slices of the pizza as joint tenants. So each person owns 1/5 to make the whole pizza. If one person dies, that 1/5 is now shared between the 4 remaining persons. So it becomes 1/4. Each of the survivors now own 1/4 ownership in the property. And it continues down until there's 1. The remaining person holds that property absolutely, meaning that the person who remains, them alone own the land. You cannot will a property that is that has tenancy as a joint tenancy. It is important that you know that. Because your tenancy is joined with the other person's 1/5 to make it the whole, you cannot pass on your piece if you're a joint tenant in a property. On the other hand, property held as tenants in common may be passed on to your survivors. Tenancy in common means that you own, in the first instance, a 50% share of a property. In some instances, it's 60-40, 70-30, based on how it might have been bought. So there may be persons who bought, I might have put up 60% of the money, so I have 60% share, and that can be written on the title. So as joint tenants, say for instance, there are 2 persons owning property as joint tenants. When one passes, ownership or that half does not go over to the survivor. This half can be bequeathed, it can be left to your survivors. I usually warn the couples that come to me when they're purchasing property, especially if they have children, joint tenancy. If they don't have any children, still joint tenancy, because there might be someone that you might want to share your property with after you have passed. So joint tenants, you cannot pass it on. Tenants in common, you can pass it on.
Wow. Ms. Duane, that is a serious matter, because now I'm thinking, so I own a property in Jamaica and it's joint with someone else. You are actually telling me that I cannot put it on my, I cannot pass it on to my children?
No, you can't. If the tenancy is joint tenancy.
Okay, so I have to go a little bit deeper, Miss Duane, with this one, because this matter is a serious one, and I believe that more persons need to hear this.
It's very serious.
So how then do we get to change? Can we actually change that kind of tenancy in the middle of owning the property? How do I get out of that? I mean,
sadly, no, you can't change a tenancy that way. What you can do is gift it while you're alive to your child or children. You can gift it, because a tenancy is usually done at the beginning of the process of acquiring the property. So you may gift it while you're alive, because you can't gift it when after you pass. You can't do a thing after you've passed. So it is best to do it while you're alive. You may gift it to your loved one.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. So the way to pass this on is to gift it, because you cannot put it on a will and pass it on to somebody.
If it is joint tenancy,
if it is joint tenancy. Thank you so much for that clarification, Ms. Duane. And I'm moving along because I know we're going to have some questions, and I invite you right now to start putting those questions